UCLA is coming for that number 1 seed.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm Kalia Butler. Joined alongside me is my co-host, Sophia Jones. We're going to get into the Shamrock Classic that is coming up, a battle of the USCs. Who is the real USC? But UCLA gets another signature win. Before we get into that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Now, UCLA has been on a bit of a steamroll. They're playing high caliber teams, mind you. They just played against Oklahoma, now defeating UNC. They're going to be really hard to beat. And this is something that we have talked about. And again, we've mentioned them basically every single podcast. But this is another signature win. North Carolina being able to move into that 11 seed spot. And UCLA defeated them 78-60. Now, that's a pretty significant margin. And Sophia, I'll throw this to you after I state these stats. But what we were talking about is this game looked similar to that Oklahoma game where they kind of let these teams feel like they're in the game for a while, and then they start to create their separation in the second half. So quarter by quarter, it was UNC 17, UCLA 12. Quarter 2, UNC 17, UCLA 23. Pretty fair right there. Quarter 3, UNC 12, UCLA 23. Quarter 4, UNC 14, UCLA 20. And again, 78-60 victory. Why do you think that is, Sophia?
Well, just exactly like how you said, UCLA, when you look at a game, it never feels like in any given moment that they're just absolutely dominating. But you look at the score and all of a sudden they're up by 15 points. I think offensively, because when their offense is really flowing, they're getting really quick shots. So pushing it in transition, initiating early offense. Lauren Betts does a great job of just running the floor, getting a quick steal under the basket, and they just feed her directly. So this entire sequence is taking maybe around 8 seconds. So that's an offensive reason why it feels like just, again, all of a sudden UCLA has opened up a big lead. But defensively, constant pressure and disruptance on the perimeter you have guards like Kiki Rice or a player like Gabriela Jaquez who just really stifles their opposing perimeter players. And then in the interior, you have Lauren Betts. Are you kidding me? Reigning defensive player of the year. She's just standing in there, spotting shots, almost like a volleyball blocker in the way, but trying to mirror the ball and predict where it's going to go before she just comes in and swats it out of bounds. Her teammates do a great job funneling traffic towards her so that even though it feels like you're getting downhill, you're really not because of Lauren Betts is right there. But yeah, UCLA just constant pressure on both ends of the floor. And with the maturity in their 8 seniors and grad students that they have on the team, it's the fact that they never get too high or too low either. Just staying even kill really allows them to not get flustered at anything. If they're going on run, if the other team is going on run, they're always going to remain the same. And I think that's another reason why they sometimes feel like they sneak up on teams.
Every time I hear people say that, I always think of the interview with Kevin Durant when he's just like, I don't like to get too high. I don't like to get low. I'm just me. And I was like, you know what, Kevin? I agree with you. But I want to say that I was in my analyst bag in our last podcast because I was right on the keys to the game for UCLA. UCLA dominated the paint. 46 points versus UNC's 22, as well as the rebounding. UCLA grabbed 46 rebounds. UNC grabbed 30. What stands out about that to you, Sophia?
For the points in the paint, a lot of that is Lauren Betts for UCLA. She finished with 20 points, 8 of 15 field goals, so pretty high percentage. And then whenever she clears out of the way, it allows guards to then penetrate and get down low. A lot of those fast break opportunities are shots in the paint right around the rim as well. And then just with that rebounding margin, again, who would have thought Lauren Betts, 10 rebounds. She recorded her a double-double this last game. Also, Kiki Rice recorded her double-double of her own with 15 points, 10 rebounds. So we love when you have a rebounding guard. So she was getting in there, but it's that all hands on deck mentality in crashing the boards that really allows for that. And especially, say, for some of these defensive boards or even offensive, sometimes players on the opposing side, in this case, UNC, they're so concerned about pushing Lauren Betts and getting her away from the basket that it just allows other UCLA in players to go and get involved themselves.
When we're talking about some of the standout players in this game, we can't forget about Megan Grant as well, who hit the sexy Dexy dance after scoring her first collegiate point within a basketball game. She is a standout softball player at UCLA who is also on the basketball team, because clearly she just wants to add more to her plate and just show everybody that she is a little bit better than you. But when she scored and just the eruption of the bench herself, she is like laughing and dancing down the court. And, she didn't do too much, not to clock it a little bit. We saw LSU get into some technical trouble the other day. She kept it cute. She kept it fun. She didn't get a tech from it. But we just had to throw that in there because I love the celebration and being able to see a dual athlete like that come into a game against UNC at that. It's not like they were playing any scrub team. It was UNC, and she got her bucket and everybody was excited for her.
Yeah, I mean, just hearing her story, an all-American softball player, and of course she decides that that's not enough. And she gets her layup off of an offensive rebound as well. Again, talking about that rebounding margin. But watching that play progress, you could see her just fight for the ball. Then she got it, and you could see a little bit of the angle that she had toward the basket, but you're like, is she gonna go for it? And she did, and she made it. And it was a great moment for that UCLA squad. But to your point, gave it just maybe like 2 seconds of the sexy Dexy and then got back on defense. Cause you got to get your little hype moment in before returning back to the game. But that was a great moment. I think when you see moments like that on a team, it's really a reflection of the togetherness and the chemistry.
Yes, you can tell that this is a really tight-knit group. Obviously, some of that just being from them being on the team so long and being there together. But for the North Carolina side, we have to give UNC credit too for what they were capable of doing. Alina Arnisalo, formerly UCLA, she scored 13 points against her original team. What else did you like from UNC?
I liked India Navarre's game. She finished with 11 points. She was 4 of 13, so not as efficient as you would hope, but watching her and the way that she moves on the court, got a great shiftiness to her handles, can score on 3 levels, just very composed player. So, and a great finishing package as well. So that was great to see. But you talk about with Arnisalo, she was the one that really got it going for UNC early in that game. She kept North Carolina in the game essentially, but UCLA then kind of cooled her down a little bit in that second half. And I think that's just why you're seeing the lack of offensive production across the board from North Carolina in that second half, because UCLA just really turned up and maintained that pressure defensively. But North Carolina is a very balanced squad. And you see the reason why they are ranked number 11. They got a lot of looks creating UCLA turnovers and capitalizing on that. They have a lot of different scorers. And yeah, they were just able to play on both sides of the ball pretty well.
UCLA winning pretty comfortably over some ranked opponents. But after this, we're going to talk about who the real USC school is. When I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, energy, mood, even my skin. That's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's doctor developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what the day looks like. Drip Drop isn't your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. I like using Drip Drop because I actually competed in High Rocks today, not to make this about myself, but I drank Drip Drop before I went and I felt very hydrated throughout the entire event. No cramping, so I highly recommend, and it's not too sugary, which I personally prefer. Right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com, use your promo code LOCKEDONNBA. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDON for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard and keep your body and mind performing at their best with Drip Drop. And tell them Kalia sent you. Okay, the real battle of the USC schools. This one's a little bit hard because I really do just call Southern California USC. But they're going up against South Carolina, number 2, South Carolina, number 8, USC. This is going to be a pretty significant battle, aside from the USC part, which I know they're going to like really capitalize on, which I also kind of love that. I truly believe this is going to be a test more for South Carolina than USC. USC obviously has a lot of young players right now that are showing a lot of promise, though. They aren't necessarily playing like they're young players, they are playing like developed players. However, South Carolina hasn't shown to be the South Carolina that we have maybe seen in years past, as well as some maybe off court stuff that is going on. You don't know how that can impact the on court product. And also, we've talked a lot about depth with the South Carolina team. They're going to have to be able to pull people going against USC, who is going to probably want to really push the tempo.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that getting a win today would almost mean more to South Carolina than it would be to USC. For South Carolina, they played Grand Canyon, Bowling Green, and then Clemson, won all those games. But especially in that Clemson game, it didn't feel like this was the version of the team that is expected to go far in the NCAA tournament. There are still some offensive growing pains that they need to work through just when it gets a little stagnant and lulls. Their defense is still omnipresent. So that's always going to be there, I think, regardless because of the way that Don Staley coaches. But you talk about just the depth, not we don't know if Maddie McDaniel is going to play. She was suspended last game against Clemson for reasons that Don Staley did not disclose, but she said that her return would be up to her essentially. And that would give them a huge boost right there. But for players like Tanaya Latson, who I think is still finding and navigating her role, especially when she is a prolific offensive scorer on that South Carolina team. I think she's still finding that a little bit, but USC looked really good in that game against NC State, and they have some ballers too. I'm really excited. I don't know if they'll guard each other quite yet or guard each other in this game, but I have to imagine they will be matched up at some times. But Jazzy Davidson versus Joyce Edwards is going to be, I think, the one that we're looking for.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, when we're looking at Jazzy Davidson too, just the game that she had against NC State, but also just they have a little bit more depth on their side as well for South Carolina, which I think is going to help them a lot. And I feel like I keep bringing up the depth conversation here, not as if they're not all prime athletes, but they are going to be going really hard against each other. I think if South Carolina can't kind of dig a little bit deeper into their bag, it's going to be tough. But when you think about Joyce Edwards, obviously a freshman who has made a very significant impact already, she's definitely going to be one of their main scoring options, I could assume, going into this game. I'd also like to see more from Raven Johnson. We obviously know what she is capable of, especially on the defensive end, and South Carolina, a team really trying to maintain their defensive identity. But I also agree with you on Tanaya Latson. It's hard when there's a bunch of stars at South Carolina and you were trying to do maybe the same that you were doing at Florida State when you were the option. You are now no longer you are one of the options, but you are not the only option anymore. So it's going to take her a little while to get into her groove. But I am very curious to see what some of these matchups are going to look like too.
Definitely. I mean, talk about I mentioned that Jazzy Davidson and Joyce Edwards, but even a potential matchup of London Jones coming off of the bench and going at it against Raven Johnson, that can be pretty good. And I would like to see, I know Raven Johnson, she started to expand her range a little bit more at the start of the season, which is something that is very positive in the development for your game because as a point guard, especially, if you can draw a player away from the basket, it just gives the people on your team more room to create, and we know she can rack up assists like that. So I know that that will be very helpful, but it'll be interesting to see if she feels that same comfortability and level of confidence in expanding her range against a team like USC who has pretty good length in multiple positions. But like I said, I think we were talking about this in our pre-production meeting, but if South Carolina doesn't have a really convincing win against USC tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised if UCLA does jump them in the standings and UCLA becomes 2, South Carolina becomes 3.
Hmm.
I mean, this is South Carolina's first major test of the season, and they're gonna need to ace it, quite frankly, because UCLA already has had 2 signature wins, and that's putting them in a really good position.
I love that you called our chats before pre-production conversations too. I am just a yapper, and Sophia listens to me honestly. But we like to yap back and forth, truly. But we do always talk about basketball because what else could we possibly talk about, especially during this time? But Sophia, obviously, I was in my little fake analysis bag last podcast. For you, my real life analyst for the Golden State Valkyries and more, what are going to be some keys to the game for both South Carolina and USC?
For South Carolina, we know that their defense is usually gonna hold up, but they really need to capitalize converting that defense into offense. So any chance that they have to run the floor, they need to take it. They need to make sure that USC isn't matched up in their half court offense because again, they have some really great athletes, strong athletes all around who are very solid one-on-one defenders. USC did a good job of forcing NC State in their win to play in the half court and getting back in transition. So on the flip side, that is going to be a key for USC. But sometimes they always like to say sometimes your best offense is your defense, but sometimes your best defense is also your offense. And so for a team like USC, you want to make sure that that is flowing. You're getting the shots that you want. Got to make sure that Jazzy Davidson is involved because she is just such a big piece in their offense and does so many things at her size. So I think that will be important for USC. But for South Carolina, they're really going to want to get stuff in transition and they need to have everything be as cohesive as possible. I think that sometimes in the past times that I've watched them this season, when it feels like they're going into offensive lulls, it's because they're playing one-on-one and just spreading out, kind of watching what that player is going to do, which is great because they have players that can get their own buckets. But against defenders like a USC, it's going to be a little bit harder to strictly rely on iso ball.
Exactly. See, this is what I'm talking about in that analyst bag. Fantastic work, Sophia. Thank you for
Thank
giving us
you.
that breakdown. But after this, the Shamrock Shake has not been released yet because it's only November, but there is a Shamrock Classic coming up, and we're going to break it down.
The NBA season is heating up, and DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep fans in their bag all season long. Whether you're watching for the highlights, your fantasy team, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes every game night even better. DoorDash is the official on demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they're celebrating with something called the bag drop. Every time an NBA player scores 50 points in a game, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the next day, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fag bag. DoorDash has you covered for late night highlights, last minute watch parties, and double OT fuel ups. So next time someone goes off for 50, use promo code NBA50 the next day to get 50% off on DoorDash with Dash Pass. Plus your shot at the bag drop. Dash Pass members only. 50% off up to $10 a day after a 50-point game with promo code. Terms apply, no purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Opens to US residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashinyourbag.com for full details. DoorDash in your bag all season long.
All right, coming up this weekend, a lot of good games, but another one that we want you guys to be aware of is Notre Dame versus Michigan. Notre Dame is ranked 18th right now. Michigan is currently at the 14th spot. The last time these two teams met was back in the NCAA tournament in the round of 32, where Notre Dame defeated Michigan 76-55 and advanced to the Sweet 16. This game is going to be played in the Shamrock Classic, which is at a neutral site in Detroit. This should be a fun one, but it's going to depend on some of the offensive scoring from both of them. And basically, who's going to score more? Obviously, that's how you win a game. But Michigan and Notre Dame are two of the highest scoring offenses nationally. What impact is that going to have on this game, Sophia? Who needs to really show up?
Well, like you said, both these teams very prolific offensive scorers. The Irish are number 8 right now in the nation, scoring 99.7 points per game, and Michigan is number 18 with 92 points per game. So they've been put some points on the board, but they've been points on the board versus teams that haven't met their same level of competition. For Notre Dame, we know Hannah Hidalgo is going to get hers, but I think the question is going to be who around her can really step up and help to provide some offense, because all eyes are mostly going to be on Hannah. I think so far this season, Cassandra Prosper has been pretty solid for the Irish. She's averaging 19 points, 4.7 rebounds. So she's getting it done at a pretty high percentage as well, shooting 66.7%. So 6'3" guard has some great length to her that will be very much needed. And for Michigan, when talking about their offense, they're really led by their sophomore trio, which again, another young group, which is so positive to see, already have a number 14 ranking. If you think about those players being together at Michigan for these next couple years. But the sophomore trio of Mila Holloway, Olivia Olson, and Silas Swords have not missed a beat this season. They're averaging double figures in scoring each. Holloway has led Michigan in scoring one game, Olson the other, but they've been getting it done on the offensive end for that trio.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, it's really exciting to see some of these young teams right now. Michigan already in 14th in the rankings, and just continuing to see some of them grow. This is how you develop a fandom when these players go off to ideally play in the WNBA, whatever it may be. You build these connections with certain players in college. You basically kind of watch them grow. That's how I felt about a Paige Beckers or someone of the sort where you watch them now and you just see them evolve into a wonderful professional basketball player. But not to get ahead of myself, obviously Hannah Hidalgo is going to be the key player for Notre Dame, which is going to be a positive and a negative at the same time. Hannah Hidalgo is obviously coming off breaking records, which she was just another day in the office with her, essentially. And it's really funny because after we were talking about this during our podcast, one of my friends had sent me her stat line from that day and was like, allowing somebody to get 16 steals from you is crazy work. And I was like, you know what? That part, but also the fact that she even created that because she is just that tenacious of a defender that I would be fearful too. Like, I can't even blame anyone for turning the ball over against a Hannah Hidalgo in your face. And she also went on, she was on ESPN getting interviewed by Shanae and etc. About just that performance and how she's even capable of doing it. And she basically was just like, I just guard really hard. I love guarding the best player on somebody else's team. And that is my identity, is being a defender. That's going to be key going into this game. We've seen it work for Notre Dame, obviously, throughout this season and seasons prior. But it all comes down to that offensive production for her, where you don't necessarily question her offensive production, but if Michigan is clicking on all cylinders and they're having multiple players and an even balanced scoring attack against maybe just a Hannah Hidalgo, who's their main scoring option, it's going to be difficult to outweigh those two. So Notre Dame really going to have to come in defensively too, because that's where they also love to get going on the offensive end.
Definitely. And I think having Hidalgo at the front of that defense, serving as that first line, is so useful because she can just steal the ball and then go the other way, which automatically creates a lot easier offensive looks. But I will be interested to see the approach that Michigan takes into defending Notre Dame, because when you have just a high profile player, you have a main scorer, and as the team goes, or as they go, the team goes type player like Hidalgo. Sometimes what coaches do is they'll let them do whatever they want, but just make sure no one else scores on you and is essentially rendered ineffective, which we could potentially see that from Michigan. They have pretty balanced squads. I mean, I talked about that sophomore trio, but they've been able to do a really solid job defending as well. But yeah, it will be a very big test for Notre Dame to just prove, I think, to themselves as a team that they can get it done and return to the place where they were last season, one of the top ranked in the country. I think majority of the season they were a single digit ranking. I think it's safe to say. But they're going to need to make sure that they aren't on too much of a high after Hannah Hidalgo's record breaking performance. You talk about being interviewed on ESPN. She's getting a lot of attention right now. So all eyes are going to be on her. And now they just need to do it against a top ranked team.
Some fun matchups coming up this weekend. We broke them down for you. We hope that all of this is what you see in the games tomorrow, because that's going to be the real test for how good we are at this. Just kidding. Thank you so much for joining us on Locked On Women's Basketball. We will be